Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. Tank time! That's right, in today's tutorial we're making a tank top, this time using both the Suzette and cable stitch for textured, just in time for warm weather activities. Speaking of, by now y'all already know the drill, but just in case you're new. All the modern crochet tutorials and patterns are here, with even more dropping twice weekly, so tell a friend and consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now, it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 165 grams of yarn. That's 300 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us if anyone were to narrate your life, who would you choose? Keith David for me, hands down. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 5 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, and treble crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small. You can adjust it for your size and explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 5mm hook and start off by making an odd number chain that reaches from mid collarbone across our chest to mid collarbone. Now I need roughly 6 inches or 15 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 23. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to get started on our first row. So block off that last chain and do a chain 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't actually count as a stitch, that counts as our turning chain. Then we are all going to start with 5 half double crochets. So yarn over, into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, insert with our first half double crochet. So insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3. Again, yarn over, next chain, pull through 3, and continue until we have a total of 5 half double crochets. Now that we have our 5 half double crochets, we're all going to do our Suzette stitch detail. Now to do our Suzette stitch detail, into that following stitch we're going to insert with 1 single crochet, and also into that same stitch with 1 double crochet. So insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that is our first Suzette stitch set. Let's do that again. Now after every Suzette stitch set, we're always going to skip that following stitch because that double crochet actually counts as that stitch. If we work into there, we will accidentally be increasing, so we're going to skip 1, into the next, insert with a single crochet, then into that same stitch also with a double crochet. Let's do this just once more. So skip that following stitch and into the next, insert with a single, then with a double crochet. Now we're going to continue to do our Suzette stitch set until we have a total of 7 stitches left. So we have made our way down with our Suzette stitches, and we should all have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches left. Now to complete the Suzette stitch detail, we're going to skip 1 stitch and then half double crochet into that next. So yarn over, skip that following and into the next with 1 half double crochet, and now our Suzette stitch detail is completed. We should all have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chains left. So we're going to close off the row the same way that we started off the row with 1 half double crochet into the rest of our chains, so 5 half doubles. So yarn over, into the next with 1 half double, and complete with 1 half double into the rest of our chains. So we have just made our way down with our first row, and we should have the same amount of stitches as chains that we made. Now the second row is going to be done exactly the same way as this first row, so we're all going to chain 2 and flip. We're going to start off the row with 5 half double crochets. Now that we have our 5 half double crochets, we're going to do our same Suzette stitch detail. So into that following stitch, which actually should be the top of the half double crochet that closed off our Suzette stitch sets from our previous row, we're going to insert with 1 single and 1 double. So insert into that following stitch with a single, into that same stitch with 1 double crochet. Then from here, skip a stitch into that next, which should be a single crochet from our previous row. We do want to make sure that now every set is worked into our previous row's single crochet to get the texture that we want. We're going to insert with another single and double. We're going to continue on with our same Suzette stitch detail until we have 7 stitches left again. Our row 2 is nearly complete. We should all have 7 stitches left. We're always going to close off our Suzette stitch detail with 1 half double crochet. So skip that following stitch and into the next with 1 half double crochet. Now the Suzette stitch detail is completed, and now we should all have 5 stitches left. From here, close off the row with 1 half double crochet into the rest of our stitches. We are back and our row 2 is complete. We're not doing any increases or decreases for this portion, so we should still have the same amount of stitches as chains that we made. Now to get started on our row 3, we're going to chain 2 and flip. Now every odd number row is going to be framed with our twists, and the twist is always going to start with 1 front post treble crochet. Now, as a really quick tip, each of our post stitches will always be worked into our previous odd number row. So since we're about to get started on our row 3, we're going to be inserting our hook into our row 1. So the first stitch is going to be a front post treble crochet, so we're all going to yarn over twice. Then taking a look at that first stitch from our row 1, we're going to bring our hook down underneath the body of that stitch, through the other side, yarn over and pull through. Now from here, we should have 1, 2, 3, 4 loops on our hook. Then we're just going to yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. So yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. And now our first stitch for our row 3 is completed. Now that is going to be our dividing stitch because our twists are going to be framed within dividing stitches. Now to do the actual twist detail, we are going to yarn over twice again, skip 1 stitch from our previous odd number row, then into the next 2, 1 front post treble crochet into each of those. So bring your hook down, we're going to skip that following stitch and into the next, through the other side, pull through, then yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook again. Then another front post treble into that following stitch, so yarn over twice, into that next, pull through, yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. Now that we have those 2 stitches completed, we're now going to work back into that 1 skip stitch, putting 1 front post treble crochet into there as well. So yarn over twice, bring our hook back underneath the body of that 1 skip stitch through the other side and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. Now that is the actual twist portion. Like I said, it's always going to be framed with our dividing stitch, which is always going to be a front post treble crochet, so yarn over twice, bring our hook down underneath the body of that following stitch, through the other side and pull through, then yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. And that is our first twist. We're now going to do the same Suzette stitch detail that we've been doing this entire time. So start by skipping 5 stitches from our previous row. We're going to skip 5 because we just took up a total of 5 stitches here for our twist detail. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Into that following, we're going to insert with 1 single crochet and 1 double crochet. Now continue on with our Suzette stitch detail, making our way down until we have 7 stitches left again. So we've made our way down. We should all have 7 stitches left. Now just to close off the Suzette stitch detail, yarn over, skip that following stitch and into that next with 1 half double crochet, and that closes off our Suzette stitch detail, still leaving us with 5 stitches. Now we're going to do the same exact twist detail that we did when we got started on this row. So starting with our dividing stitch, we're going to yarn over twice. Into the 5th to last stitch from our row 1, since every post stitch is worked into our previous odd number row, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to bring our hook down underneath that 5th stitch through the other side, pull through, yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. Then for the twist portion, yarn over twice. We're going to skip 1 stitch from our previous odd number row, then 1 front post treble crochet into the following 2. So remember, skip 1, into the next with 1 front post treble, then another front post treble into that following stitch, which just so happens to be the second to last. Then working back into that 1 skip stitch, 1 front post treble crochet into there. And now that we're at the end of the row, we are going to frame off our twist with our dividing stitch, but since it is the last stitch in the row, it is going to be 1 front post treble combined with a half. We're going to yarn over twice. Bring our hook underneath the body of the last stitch from our row 1, yarn over and pull through. Should all have 4 loops on our hook, so yarn over, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Now that we have these 2 loops on our hook, we're all going to yarn over and insert your hook into the top of the last stitch from our previous row. Yarn over and pull through for a total of 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over and pull through all 4. And now our row 3 is completed. Now from here, it is going to be a repeat of our 2 previous rows. So just to get started on the following row, we're all going to chain 2 and flip. Now we're all going to start with 5 half double crochets. Now that we have our 5 half doubles, into that following stitch, insert with our first Suzette stitch set, then continue on with our Suzette stitch sets till we all have 7 stitches left. We've made our way down, we should all have 7 stitches left. To close off the Suzette stitch detail, skip 1 stitch, insert into that last with a half double, then complete the row with 1 half double crochet into the rest of our stitches. Our row 4 is now complete. Now just to talk you guys through our row 5, which is every odd number row, we're going to chain 2 and flip. Now when it comes to doing our twist, like I said, every post stitch is going to be worked into our previous odd number row. But the posts are still going to be done the same. So it is going to start with 1 front post, treble crochet, so yarn over twice. Finding that first stitch from our previous odd number row, which should be the first post stitch, we're going to bring our hook down, underneath, through the other side, and pull through. Then yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. Then to do our twist portion, we're going to yarn over twice. Skip that following stitch, into the next, insert with 1 front post treble, then into that following, another front post treble. Then working back into that 1 skip stitch, 1 front post treble crochet again, then the twist detail will be completed. Then we're still going to close this off by framing it with 1 front post treble crochet. Then that first twist for our row 5 is completed. From here, we're going to do the same Suzette stitch detail that we did for our previous odd number row all the way down, leaving the last 7 stitches. So we've just done our Suzette stitch detail all the way down until we had 7 stitches left. When we had those 7 stitches left, we skipped a stitch and half double crocheted into that following. Now we're going to do the same twist that we did at the beginning of our row 5. So we're going to start with our front post treble crochet, so yarn over twice. Bring your hook underneath that first post stitch from our previous odd number row, through the other side, pull through, yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. Again, yarn over twice. We're going to skip that following stitch, and underneath that following, insert with 1 front post treble, then another front post treble crochet underneath that following stitch. Then we're going to skip that following stitch, and underneath that following with 1 front post treble, underneath that following stitch, another front post treble. Then we're going to work back into that 1 skip stitch with 1 front post treble crochet again. Then our twist portion will be completed, and the last stitch in our odd number row is always going to be a front post treble combined with a half. So yarn over twice, underneath the body of that last stitch from our previous odd number row, pull through. Then yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 2 loops left on our hook. Yarn over, insert your hook into the top of that last stitch from our previous row, pull through for 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over and pull through all 4 loops, and now our row 5 is complete. Now all we're going to do from here is continue to repeat our 2 previous rows with no increases, no decreases until we now have the length of the top portion that we want. So just placing this first row where we'd like the bottom of this top to be, so you can place this cropped or full length. Then we're just going to continue on until the last row that we have reaches at our underbust, so roughly where an underwire would sit. I'll meet everyone back right after an odd number row, and then we can get started on the middle detail, then our cups together. So we are back. I've just completed the height of my detail. I now have a total of 31 rows. This height is just about 9.5 inches or 24 centimeters. I did do a chain up one and cut right after that last row. Now we're going to get started on the point detail. So first things first, we're all going to want to insert our stitch marker into the 5th stitch from both outer edges. That is going to be the same for everyone because we are not going to be working into the tops of our twist detail. Now from here, we're going to flip our work over to look at the back. Then we're going to insert our hook into the stitch that's nearest to our stitch marker stitch or the 6th stitch from the edge. Then we're going to do a Suzette stitch row in between our stitch markers that start and end with a decrease. Now from here, we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through and start with a chain 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't actually count as a stitch, we just need the height. Now we're going to start with a decrease of 3 half double crochets. So we're going to yarn over. We're then going to insert our hook into that same stitch that our chain 2 is in, yarn over and pull through. Into that next stitch, pull through, and next stitch, pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Then yarn over and pull through all 5 of those loops. Then we're going to do our Suzette stitch until we have 4 stitches left before our stitch marker. So we're going to skip that following stitch. Now that should be a double crochet from our previous row. Into that next, which should be a single crochet because we're still doing our Suzette stitch sets into our previous row's single crochets. We're going to insert with our first Suzette stitch set. Again, skip a stitch into the next, single and double. Continue on with this until we have 4 stitches left before our following stitch marker. We've made our way down with our Suzette stitches. We should all have 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches left before our stitch marker. Now from here again, yarn over. We're going to skip that following stitch and into the next, we're going to insert, pull through, insert, pull through, insert, pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook again. Then yarn over, pull through 5, and now our first decrease row is complete. So it's all chain 2 and flip. So now the rows are going to still start off with a decrease of 3 half doubles. So yarn over, into that first stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 5. Then again, we're going to skip a stitch, single and double. Now from here, we're going to continue to do our Suzette stitches until we have 3 stitches left. Then once we have our 1, 2, 3 stitches left, we're then going to close off our row now with a decrease of 2 half doubles. So yarn over, skip that following stitch and into the next, pull through, into the next, which should be the last from our previous row, pull through, yarn over, and pull through 4. Now from here, it should be a repeat of this row, so starting the row off with a decrease of 3, then ending the row off with a decrease of 2, until we all have 4 stitches left like this. When we have 4 stitches left, we're thus going to close off our point detail with a decrease of 4 double crochets. So we're all going to chain 3, flip our work, then we're going to yarn over into that first stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through, and then last stitch, pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 loops on our hook. From here, yarn over, pull through the first 5, leaving us with 2 loops left on our hook, then yarn over, pull through 2, then our point is completed. Then we're going to do a chain up 1 and cut. So we are back and the point detail is completed and I did do a chain up 1 and cut. Now from here, we're going to prep for the cups and that's just going to be a single crochet row along the top. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch and start with just 1 single crochet into every stitch. Then I'll meet you back to work up the side of our point. So I've just completed putting 1 single crochet into the top of each of my stitches. Now we should all have a total of 5 stitches because we're just working on top of the twist. We're going to make sure that we're inserting our stitch marker into the top of that stitch just so we know where the edge of this starts and begins. Now working our way up our point, we're going to be putting 2 single crochets into every side row. So finding this first side row right here, I'm going to find that top loop and insert with 1, then into that same top loop with a second. Again, this is my following side row. I'm going to insert in through there with 2 single crochets. Then into my following side row with 2 single crochets again. And from here, just continue with 2 single crochets into every side row until we reach the top point. Now, once we have reached the top point of our point, into the top of that last stitch that we have for the point, we are going to insert with just one single crochet into the top of that stitch. And we are going to be inserting a stitch marker into that stitch so we know where the middle is. Now from here, we're going to continue with 2 single crochets into every side row and 1 single crochet into every stitch, and don't forget to insert your stitch marker into the top of that same stitch. At the end of the row, do a chain up 1 and cut, then I'll meet you back. So we are back. We have just completed our single crochet row. Now from here, we're going to get started on our actual cup detail. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to insert our hook into the top stitch that we have for our prep row that we just did. So into that top stitch marker stitch. Then we're all going to start with a chain 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't actually count as a stitch, we just want the height. Then we're going to do our Suzette stitches, working our way down until we reach our stitch marker. Now we are going to start this row off with an increase of 4 half double crochets. So yarn over, into that stitch marker stitch, insert with 4 half double crochets, remembering that that chain 2 does not count as a stitch. Now that we have our increase of 4 half doubles, we are going to skip a stitch, into the next, insert with a Suzette stitch set, so a single and a double. Skip a stitch, single crochet and double into the next, and just continue on with our Suzette stitch sets until we have 2 stitches left before our stitch marker stitch. Now I've just made my way down and I have 2 stitches left before my stitch marker. Now just to close off the row, yarn over. Skip that next stitch and half double crochet into that next. Now we're going to connect it into the base, and the base is just going to be our stitch marker stitch all the way out towards the edge. So into that stitch marker stitch, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, we're going to slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. I'm actually going to take out my stitch marker as well, and yarn over, pull through. Now that slip stitch into the base does not count as a stitch either, and we're going to flip our work. Now to do our second cup row, we're just going to do a Suzette stitch row, no increases, no decreases. So finding the last stitch from our previous row, not working into any of those slip stitches into the base, so into the top of the half double crochet, insert with a single and a double. And from here, continue on with our Suzette stitch sets, closing off the row with just 1 half double crochet. And from here, continue on with our Suzette stitch sets per usual until we have 2 stitches left. So we are back, and I've made my way down, leaving the last 2 stitches. So to close off our row 2, we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into the last stitch, then with 1 half double crochet. Now from here, we're going to chain 1 and flip. Now for this portion of our cup, we're going to be increasing into the beginning of every other odd number row. So for row 3, we're not going to be doing an increase. We're just going to start with a single and double into that first stitch, and then just continue to do our Suzette stitch sets till we have 2 stitches left, closing off the row with just 1 half double crochet. Then I'll meet you back. We are back, and our first 3 rows are completed. Now we're just going to connect it into the base. So just like our previous rows, finding that next available stitch into the base, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch doesn't count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, still does not count as a stitch. Then do our 4th row the same way that we did our previous row. So just Suzette stitch all the way down. When we have 2 stitches left, close off the row with 1 half double crochet. So we are back, and our first 4 rows are completed. Now we're going to get started on our row 5, and that's going to be done the same way as our row 1, because remember, we're increasing at the beginning of every other odd number row. So we're going to chain 2 and flip. Now into that first stitch, insert with 4 half double crochets. Then do the rest of our Suzette stitch row per usual, connect it into the base the same way that we have been doing. Then I'll meet you back at the end of our row 5. So we are back. We have just completed the first 5 rows, and we all should have been worked into that last available stitch that we have into that single crochet prep row that we did. Now from here, we're going to continue to get this height that we need for the cup. And now we're just going to do a few rows where the bottom is nice and blunt before we get the really nice curve that leads up to our underarm. So to get started on everyone's row 6, we're all going to chain 2 and flip. Now to get started on our row 6, we're going to start with an increase of 4 half double crochets. So yarn over, into the last stitch from our previous row, not that slip stitch into the base, insert with 1, 2, 3, and 4, Then continue on with our Suzette stitches to reach the end of the row. We're all going to want to make sure that we're inserting our stitch marker into the edge of this first row. Now everyone's row 6 is completed. Now we're going to do our row 7. So from here we're going to chain 1, flip our work. Do our Suzette stitch all the way down, leaving the last 2 stitches, because then we're going to increase at the end of the row. We're now at the end of our row 7. We should all have 2 stitches left. Now we're going to close off the row with an increase, and at the end of the rows it's going to be an increase of 3 half double crochets. So yarn over into that last stitch from our previous row. We're going to insert with 1 half double, same last stitch with a second, same last stitch with a third. And now everyone's row 7 is complete. Everyone's row 8 is just going to be a Suzette stitch row with no increases, no decreases. So chain 1, flip your work. Suzette stitch all the way up. Well, we have 2 stitches left, close it off with just 1 half double crochet, then I'll meet everyone back. So we are back. We have just completed our first 8 rows for the cup. Now as we can see, this portion is blunt. What we're going to do is continue to repeat these 3 previous rows until this blunt portion that we have along the bottom reaches roughly mid-chest. Then once we have that completed, I'll meet everyone back right after an even number row. Then we can get started on the curve that leads up to our underarm portion. Now after my 8 rows, I actually have the width that I need for this portion, but the height of my cup still needs a little bit more height. So my following row, which is my row 9, I'm still going to do an increase of 4 half double crochets. So what I'm going to do is chain 2, flip our work. Since this is another increase row, we're going to start with an increase of 4 half double crochets, then do our following Suzette stitch row, closing off the row with just 1 half double crochet. But for those of you that already have the height of the cup that you have, all you're going to do is chain 1, flip your work, then do our Suzette stitch row all the way down, closing off the row with just 1 half double crochet. Now that we have made our way down, we're now going to do our following even number row, and that's going to start with a decrease of 2 half double crochets, so chain 2 and flip. Now to start the row off with a decrease, it's going to be 2 decrease of 2 halves. So insert into that first stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through 4. Into the following 2 stitches, another decrease of 2 halves. So pull through, yarn over, pull through 4. Then into that following stitch, insert with our first Suzette stitch set. Then continue on with the rest of our Suzette stitch sets to reach the end of the row. Now our first decrease row is completed. We do want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into the edge of this row. Then just to do the following row, chain 1, flip our work, do our Suzette stitch, make our way all the way down, closing off the row with just 1 half double crochet. So a non-increase, non-decrease row. So we have just completed our first decrease row and our following row. From here, we're going to continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until this bottom point that we have right here, until it becomes roughly 1 inch underneath our underarm. Then once we have that, right after an odd number row, so along the bottom, do a chain up of 1 and cut, then repeat on the other side. Now after this row, so my total of 11 rows, I am actually complete with 1 cup. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, then I'll meet everyone back to fill in the bottom portion together. So we are back. We have just finished up our second cup. Now from here, we are going to fill in the sides. So we're going to start with the left side, or this is going to be the right side when it's on, but we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then insert our hook into the outer bottom corner stitch of the cup, and we're going to start with a single crochet row along the bottom of the cup, then work our way down the side. Now what we're going to do from here is pull our working yarn through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then into each of these side rows, we are going to put 2 single crochets into each. So into this first side row, I'm going to insert with 2 single crochets. So there's 1, into that same side row with a second. Into that following side row with 2 single crochets as well. Now my following side row does have my stitch marker into it. We're going to be inserting our stitch marker into the second single crochet that we do into that side row. So these are my 2 single crochets into that side row. I'm going to insert it into that second single crochet that I made. Then from here, I'm going to continue with 2 single crochets into every side row until we're worked into our last side row, which is this stitch marker side row right here. And we are going to want to make sure that the amount of single crochets that we have along the bottom of our cup is in multiples of 3. So if you guys need to add or take away an additional stitch or 2, go ahead and get that done. But do make sure that you're inserting a stitch marker into that last stitch so we know where this portion starts and ends. Now we have just worked our way into the bottom of the cup. Now working our way down the edge of our cable stitch detail, we are going to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. So starting with just one single crochet, we're all going to start by finding that first side row. This is mine right here. Find that top loop and insert with one single crochet. This is my following side row. Insert with 2. There's 1. There's 2. Again, into my following side row. This is mine right here. There is 1. There is 2. Then into my following side row, insert with just 1. Continue doing this to reach the end of the row. We are back and we have just completed our single crochet row. Now we're going to do our following row, which is a back loop slip stitch row, so chain 1 and flip. So start by finding that first stitch from our previous row. We're going to insert into that back loop, yarn over, and gently pull through everything on our hook. We want to make sure that we're not tugging through too tightly, otherwise the following row will be too tight to work into. Again, into that following stitch's back loop, yarn over, and pull through everything, and continue with one back loop slip stitch into every stitch until we're worked into the stitch right before our following stitch marker stitch. So we've just made our way up with our back loop slip stitches. We're worked into that last available stitch right before our following stitch marker stitch. Now from here, we're going to connect it into the base. The base is going to be our first stitch marker stitch here and all the single crochets along the bottom of our cup. So we're going to slip stitch into that stitch marker stitch. So I'm going to take this out and into that following stitch, insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch doesn't count as a stitch. We just need that to connect. Then we do need to work our way up to the following row, so we're going to slip stitch up the following 2 available stitches. So there is 1, into that next with a second. None of those slip stitches into the base count as a stitch, and flip our work. Now working our way down, we're going to be putting one back loop half double crochet into every stitch. So yarn over, finding the last stitch from our previous row, not working into any of those slip stitches into the base. We're going to insert into that back loop with one half double. Then from here, continue with one back loop half into every stitch. So we are back. We have just completed our half double crochet row. Now from here, we're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows. So just a back loop slip, back loop half double crochet row with no increases, no decreases, connecting it into the base the same way that we just did until we're ready to work into our following stitch marker stitch. Now as a really quick tip, we want to make sure that we're meeting back right after back loop slip stitch row. Now that back loop slip stitch row could meet back within the stitch before the stitch marker stitch or into the stitch marker stitch, but I'll meet you guys back right after a slip stitch row. So we are back. We have just completed our back loop half, back loop slip stitch rows until we're worked into the stitch that we have that's before our following stitch marker stitch, making sure that we ended right after a slip stitch row. We do want to make sure that we're keeping track of how many rows we have here, just so we have the same amount of rows on the other side. But I'm actually stopped one stitch right before our stitch marker stitch. But from here, all we're going to do is an increase of 3 half double crochets at the beginning of our half double crochet rows now. So I'm just going to work my way up to the following row, the same way that we've been doing, flip my work, and I'll be back. So I'm ready to get started at my first increase half double crochet row. So yarn over, into the last stitch from our previous row, not worked into any of those slip stitches into the base, we're going to insert with an increase of 3 half doubles. Now that our increase is completed, continue with one back loop half into every stitch. Then the following row is just going to be our same back loop slip stitch rows, no increases, no decreases. Then just continue to repeat our back loop half double crochet row that starts with an increase and back loop slip stitch row until we don't have any more stitches into the cup left to work into. When we don't, I'll meet you back. So we are back. We have just made our way all the way out to the edge of our piece. Now from here, we're just going to do back loop half, back loop slip stitch rows, no increases, no decreases, worked off of the piece until we have a portion that can wrap around to mid back. And I will meet everyone back right after a back loop half double crochet row. All right, so we are back. We have just completed one half of our side panel. Now I did a total of 28 rows. That is not including our single crochet prep row. This width is just about 6.5 inches or 17 centimeters unstretched, or my total width is 12.5 inches or 32 centimeters unstretched. Now from here, we're going to do pretty much the same thing that we did on this side, but just a smidge bit different because the ribbing isn't reversible. So for the right side, making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, we're going to insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch of our cable stitch detail first. Then from here, we are going to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, starting with 1, kind of like how we did on this side, making our way all the way up. Then I'll meet you back once we're worked into our last side row for the cable stitch detail. We've made our way up with our single crochets. Now we're going to work our way underneath the cup the same way that we did the other side. So all we're going to do is put 2 single crochet into every side row. So what we're going to do is just find that first side row, which our stitch marker should be into, and insert with 2 single crochets. Those 2 single crochets are into that first side row. We all want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into that. Then from here, continue with 2 single crochet into every side row. Now, just like the other side, the amount of single crochets that we have underneath our cup does need to be in multiples of 3. So just like the other side, if you needed to add an additional stitch or 2 or take away a stitch or 2, we're going to do that on this side as well. There must be the same amount of stitches on both sides. Then also, once we reach our stitch marker side row, once we reach our decrease row, we're going to be inserting our stitch marker into that first stitch that we do into that side row. Once we make our way all the way out, do a chain up of 1 and cut. Then I'll meet you back to get started on the first row. So now that our single crochet prep row is completed and we did do a chain up 1 and cut, we're now going to do our following back loop slip stitch row. So like I said, since the ribbing isn't reversible, to get started on this side, we're actually going to insert our hook into our stitch marker stitch, the one that's right at the corner of the cup and the front panel detail. We're going to pull our working yarn through, and starting with that following stitch, working down, put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Then at the end of that row, chain 2, flip our work, put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. Then I'll meet you guys back to show you how we're going to connect it into the base. But just as a really quick tip, we should have the same amount of stitches that we had for the first row on this side as well. We are back. We have just completed our first 2 rows for this side panel. Now we're going to connect it into the base. So on this side, we're connecting the half double crochet rows into the base. So what we're going to do is count up the next 2 available stitches. So there's 1, there's 2. Into that second stitch, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. That slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. Remember, still doesn't count as a stitch. Flip our work and do our back loop slip stitch row. From here, we're going to continue to repeat these 2 previous rows with no increases, no decreases yet, until we reach our stitch marker stitch, or we have the same amount of side rows that we did on this side before we did our increases. So for those of you that have my numbers, I did a total of 5 non-increase rows. That is not including my prep row. So I'll meet everyone back when I have a total of 5 rows here. Then we can do the increase and to the side. So we are back. We are now ready to do the increase rows. So everyone's last row should have been a back loop slip stitch row. What we're going to do from here is chain 2, flip our work. Put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving that last stitch. Then I'll meet you back to do the increase. So we have made our way up with our half double crochets, leaving that last one. Now into that last one, just like the other side, we're all going to do an increase of 3 back loop half double crochets into that last stitch. Now that we have our increase, we're going to connect it into the base the same way that we've been doing. So just count up the next 2 available stitches, insert with a slip stitch. Remember that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. Flip our work and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. From here, we're going to continue to repeat those 2 previous rows until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. We should have the same amount of rows that's worked into the base of the cup that we had on this side. And once we do, we're then just going to do our back loop slip, back loop half double crochet rows with no increases, no decreases, same exact way that we did this side for the same amount of rows. Now, once we have that all completed, I will meet everyone back so that we can seam it all together. So we are back. The entirety of the front panel is completed. I now have a total of 19 inches or 48 centimeters. Now from here, we're going to seam it up. So we're going to fold our work in half, making sure that all of the detail is along the outside, because the seam is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam to make it look like another back loop slip stitch row. Now that our work is folded in half, we're going to insert our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. We're going to pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. And now we're going to do our outside loop slip stitch seam. Finding that first stitch into the front panel, we're going to insert in through that front loop. First stitch into the back panel, insert in through that back loop, yarn over, and pull through everything on our hook. Again, next stitch into that front panel, insert in through that front loop. Next stitch into the back panel, insert in through that back, yarn over, pull through everything, and continue doing this till we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up 1 and cut. So now that everything is all seamed up, we're ready to get started on the strap prep. So what we're going to do is make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch of one of our cups, and we're just going to do a single crochet row all the way down and around and back up. So go ahead and insert your yarn onto your hook and start with just one single crochet into every stitch. Then I'll meet you back to work into the top of the back panel. So I've made our way down with our single crochets. Now we're going to work into the back portion. So everyone should have a side single crochet row to work into, and that was the prep for the side panel. Just find the top of that single crochet row and insert with just one single crochet. Then from here, everyone's first side row that we have working into the back should be a side slip stitch row. So find that top slip stitch row and insert with one single crochet. Into the back, we're going to be putting one single crochet into every side slip, two single crochet into every side half. So into that next side row, which is our side half, insert with two single crochet. Into that following side slip, insert with one. And we're just going to continue doing this until we're worked into our last side half double crochet row right before our seam. And really quickly, we do want to make sure that this single crochet row before we reach the seam is in multiples of 3. So counting all of the single crochets that we have, if it's not in multiples of 3, go ahead and add an additional stitch or 2 or take some away. That's completely up to you. Then I'll meet you guys back right after we worked into that last half double crochet row. So we've just made our way down with our single crochet row and we're worked into that last side half double crochet row right before our seam. Now I do want to make sure that we know where our 2 middle stitches are. So into that last stitch that we have on this side of our seam, I'm going to insert my stitch marker. Then skipping over the seam and into the following side half double crochet row, we're going to insert with 2 single crochets and insert your stitch marker into that first stitch that we made, and those are 2 middle stitches. Then continue with 2 single crochets into every side half, 1 single crochet into every side slip, then also make your way all the way up the edge of this cup and do a chain up a 1 and cut. Then I'll meet you back. And if you needed to add an additional stitch or 2 on the first side, we're going to have to do it on this side as well, because we want to make sure that we have the same amount of single crochets on both sides. So we are back. Our single crochet row is complete. Now from here, we're going to get started on the height of our band that will also double as our strap. So from here, we're going to make sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up. We're all going to insert our hook into the stitch marker stitch that we have within the back. Then we're all going to start by making a chain the height that we'd like for the back strap / strap to be. So I'd like for mine to be just about 1 inch or 2 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making a chain 5. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 2. Now we're going to yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet, and into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, insert with a half double crochet and continue with 1 half double crochet into every chain. Now that we're at the end of our row 1, we're all going to connect it into the base. Now just to connect this row into the base, we're all going to slip stitch into that same stitch that our chain is in. Remember that that slip stitch into the base doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch up the following 2 stitches into the base, flip our work, and put 1 back loop half into every stitch. Then at the end of the row, chain 2, flip our work, 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, and I'll meet you back at the end of our row 3. We're now at the end of our row 3. Now we're going to connect it into the base again. So now all we're going to do is slip stitch into that next available stitch into the base. Remember that doesn't count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into the following 2 stitches into the base, flip our work, and 1 back loop half into every stitch. And we're just going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. Then I'll meet everyone back. So we are back. We have just made our way all the way around and up with our back loop half double crochets. Now we're going to work on the strap. So this next portion is going to be the same for everyone. So whether for along the outer edge like me or along the base, we're all just going to chain 2, flip our work, 1 back loop half into every stitch, chain 2, flip our work, 1 back loop half into every stitch again. And just continue to repeat that back loop half double crochet row with no increases, no decreases, until we have a strap that can reach up and over our shoulder to wherever we want it to connect into the back panel. Then I'll meet everyone back right after an odd number of strap rows. That's not including the back band rows. Alright, so we are back. We have just completed the strap portion. Now just counting my first row that's not connected into the base, I have a total of 23 rows, and this length is just about 10 inches or 25 centimeters. Now from here, we're going to connect it into the back. Now at this point, we're probably going to want to try this on, and we're going to insert a stitch marker into any one of the side rows where we'd like for the strap to connect. Now this can be closer to the first row or closer to the outer edge. That's completely up to you. I wanted mine to just be a straight up and over strap. So I went ahead and inserted my stitch marker into the 5th side row from the edge. Then from here, we're just going to connect this corner with my stitch marker side row. Now from here, we're just going to seam the corner with my side row until we don't have anything left to work into. Then when it's connected, we're going to repeat on the other side. So what we're going to want to do, it is just going to be a single crochet row. So we're all going to make sure the work is flipped wrong side out to do this. So I'm going to start by inserting my hook into my working yarn on this side, then also insert my hook into that stitch marker side row that we have into the top of the back band. Now what we're going to do from here is pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then all we're going to do is our single crochet seam, but working in through the top of the back band, we're going to be putting 2 single crochets into every side row. So into that first stitch, into the strap, first side row, into the back band, insert with a single crochet. Now into that next stitch, into the strap, into that same side row within the back band, insert with a single crochet. Let's do this again. Into that next stitch, into the strap, next side row, into the back band, insert with 1 single, then again, next single crochet, into the strap, same side row within the back band, insert with a single. We're going to continue doing this till we don't have any more stitches left to work into, then do a chain up of 1 and cut. So we are back. Our back band into our strap is completed on one side. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm just going to show you guys how we're going to do the first row, then the rest of this is going to be a repeat of this side. So we're going to start by inserting our hook into the top corner stitch of that chain that we made for this side of our back band. Then we're going to chain 2, put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, and I'll meet you back so that we can connect it into the base together. So we just made our way down with our first half double crochet row. Now just to connect this first row, we're going to count up the next 2 available stitches and slip stitch into there. That's just to connect the first row. Then the rest of this is going to be exactly the same way as the other side. So slip stitch up the following 2 available stitches, flip our work with back loop halves, then chain 2, flip our work, 1 back loop half in every stitch and connect it into the base the same way we did on the other side. Then go ahead and get the rest of the back band plus the strap seam completed, then I'll meet everyone back. So we are back. Both of our straps are completed and we are now actually all done. So now the next thing we have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it, y'all. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye.